Okay, hello everybody. I am Jobs from the World of Warcraft Guild Downfall. This is a somewhat of a response video to one of our other guildies that posted his Diablo 3 build for his wizard. His name is Painhax. Thought it was a pretty cool idea. So I'm going to just briefly, try not to waste a lot of time here, just briefly go through my build, let everybody see how I play my Witch Doctor. Just a quick disclaimer, I don't profess to be the best Witch Doctor in the world. I mean, I love Witch Doctor. I've played it my entire Diablo 3 career, if you will. Really enjoy the class. Good damage, good survivability. Pretty unique class overall. Kind of hard to get going on, but once you get your feel for it, find out what you like. A lot of fun. So I'm going to be flipping through some screens. Then I'm going to, and explaining my build. And then I'm going to be going out and playing with it for a little bit, just to kind of show you how I work the build. If at any point I don't leave any screen open long enough, you can just press pause and check it out yourself. So hopefully my resolution is high enough so that you can read all the small numbers. So yeah, this is a fire build for Witch Doctor. Diablo 3, Reaper of Souls. This fire build is really only possible, in my opinion, with some of the pieces of gear that I have. Now, I don't have the most elite gear in the game, but some of the pieces of gear that I have obtained really does make this build possible. So let's go ahead and start with the character pane, the inventory pane, and look at what I'm working with. So right off the bat, first thing most people are going to look at is the damage, the toughness, and the healing. It's a pretty cross-realm. All different classes are interested in this type of stuff. As you can see, I'm at 800,000 damage. This is actually a higher number than what my damage what my gear provides. So, and we'll get more into the reason why that is. But I'm actually using a passive ability for Witch Doctor. Some of you Witch Doctors may know exactly what I'm talking about already. That buffs this number. Toughness is important to me. My fire build is a melee spec, so toughness is important. I'd actually like to see my toughness a little bit higher, but I'm kind of a middle-of-the-road approach. I'm trying to increase my damage and my toughness as a pair. I'm not trying to go all-out damage or all-out toughness. I'm trying to keep them somewhat in the same neighborhood, not favoring one over the other. Okay, so let's start with my gear. Let's start with the helm. Wearing a Grim Reaper. It's pretty sweet. Summons horrific mimics. This spawns or procs very frequently. Their damage is not anywhere near what I actually put out, but I would say if I was going to say my most favorable characteristic of this item is those mimics will actually block projectiles and ranged attacks. So they're a great shield for me being a melee and having a lot of ranged coming at me. So cool helm. Not exactly the helm I want for in-game for long down the road, but it served me really well. You can see I've got fire bat damage on there, which is my primary damage output ability. When we get over to the skills, you'll see that that's the case. Let's move on to the shoulders. A decent roll, not a super awesome roll, but a decent roll set of Zakara, which is the one that saves you money. You don't have to ever repair. It's kind of cool. My amulet this is one of my most recent pieces. Got an excellent roll on the crit hit damage. Just a good DPS trinket. Nothing really special about it. It does have vitality on it, so it does help my toughness as well. I'll go down to my bracers here. Nothing real special about these. These will probably be replaced relatively soon as I continue to get legendaries. Pretty generic piece. Nothing really awesome about it. This actually is one of the core pieces to my fire build. Without this piece of gear, I wouldn't be able to run my build. So as you see the way I put this build together, this is an instrumental part of the build. And you can notice that right away when you check out the legendary attribute on it. Reduces the cost of the fire skills by 25%. This is incredibly important with the fire bat's ability that I'm using to generate most of my damage, because it is a very expensive ability. So I rolled the sockets on there. Only got 2 out of 3, but still a pretty decent roll. I got max roll on the fire skills damage. I got max roll on intellect, and I got min roll on life. But like I said, the main part about this piece is actually the resource cost reduction. So this is one of the main pieces. And going on to the gloves, which will be the next piece, is actually another one that is very instrumental to this build, because it's just extra fire damage. This is, as you can see, a level 60 item. I have actually got a drop for a level 70 Mage Fist, but the very crucial parts of the Mage Fist for the level 70 weren't there, so I had to destroy them. Now, another thing that was really beautiful about this piece is rolling the crit hit chance of 10% was very cheap compared to a level 70. So I was able to roll and roll and roll until I got my 10%. So this is actually a pretty sweet item, even though it is a level 60 item for my fire build. And it's with the 18% fire damage and the 10% crit hit chance. Now, just to speak a little bit about attack speed before I continue, as you can see, this item has a max roll attack speed on it, which is generally pretty freaking sweet. For my build, attack speed actually causes a little bit of complication with resource management. If I stack too much attack speed, even with the really nice cinder coat that I have, and even with some of the other resource regeneration procs or legendary attributes that I have, which you'll see on my weapon set, the resources can really be hard to come by with a really fast attack speed. We'll get more into that and into the channeling aspect of the fire bat's ability. So I'm going to move on. I'm kind of taking a little longer than I expected to, but let's move on. Belt, not a super substantial piece. It's kind of cool. You get extra armor, which is good for melee. I also have another belt in my stash that will give me additional health for every health globe I pick up. So both pretty cool for the toughness aspect, but overall nothing special here. I'd actually love to get a super legendary belt, but haven't seen one yet. So I'm going to move on to one of my other favorite items. It's not exactly what I would want in a Stone and Jordan, but I got to tell you, the max roll on the damage against elites is super sweet. The attack speed, I wish I had something else there, but it's also good for damage. As you can see, I had to re-roll probably life on hit is probably what I re-rolled, and it came out vitality. So this is a really cool ring. Actually, you know what? I just remembered. I re-rolled off the frost damage, which was a really unfortunate thing, because in the end game I probably will be using cold damage on this witch doctor when I change from fire. So it's kind of sad that I rolled that. I had a max roll on that, so I had 20% cold, and I rolled that off and got vitality. So I'm probably going to regret that. But this is a really cool ring. I really like it. My other ring is just a generic yellow, and it's not even that great. I got a max roll on damage and chance for crit, but overall it doesn't have the trifecta, so it's not your absolute best yellow. Pants. This, I'm going to really be sad when I lose these pants. For the melee spec that I run with my fire build spec, my build, this legendary attribute is amazing. It does a lot of damage. It really is nice. So you'll see, as when I go out into the field and play a little bit, you'll see the poison cloud coming up and wreaking havoc on the weaker mobs. I got some of the firewalkers. Cool boots. As melee, even cooler, because as mobs come up to you, they're going to be eating that 100% weapon damage within a very short radius around you. And even still, when you're doing quick runs, and you're just trying to get to an objective within a dungeon or even out in the field, a lot of the weaker mobs will trail you and it'll just take them out. So this is a really cool item as well. Alright, so the weapon set that I have, which is a Witch Doctor one hand and a Mojo. This is another part of my fire build. This is another aspect of my fire build and my melee build that really culminates to really solidify this build. So, in a nutshell, before I go into the details on these items, this Cinder Coat and then this weapon set is actually probably the thing that really puts this set together among, you know, some other things. But as you can see from the set bonus here, every time I kill an enemy, I get mana back, which is really crucial for this build. Because a lot of times what I'm going to do for this build is I'm going to walk into a crowded group of mobs and I'm just going to decimate them, and my mana is going to be instantly restored because of that. Alright, marker 1, I have to answer the door. I will continue this in just a second and I will edit this out of the video.
I can meditate on nothing for hours.
Alright, sorry about that. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to edit that out of this video, but let's continue. And I've got to kind of speed things up a little bit here. So yeah, this weapon's part of a 2-set bonus. Get the intellect, the mana per kill, and then surrounded by a deadly poison cloud. This is also another really nice piece about this melee fire build. It does a lot of damage, and with poison, any type of poison damage, it sustains its damage over time. So if I can just walk by a mob and it will actually continue to hurt that mob, to damage that mob for probably about 2 to 3 seconds afterwards. So this is the one-handed weapon, and then this is the offhand. Took me a lot of rolls to get that crit hit chance on this. I've got some really awesome other offhands to contend with this one, but the set bonus was something I was really looking forward to. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move on so that we can wrap this up. Alright, so here's my skills here. So for my primary, my left click, I use basically this ability is not a substantial part of the build. It is generally just used to clear out breakable objects in a room. And then if I run out of mana, which does happen with this build, I can just lob these, and it is fire damage, so I do get a little bit of extra bonus from that. So this is not a substantial part, but it's kind of a nice ability. This is what it looks like. The radius on the actual area damage is quite large, so clearing a room with these is really good. Alright, moving on to my primary source of damage. This is a initial cost of 225, and then it channels for 75. And in fact, I'm going to get to, before I continue on talking about my abilities, I want to drop down here to Pierce the Veil. This is one of my passives. This is what allows me to output more damage, but it increases my mana costs substantially. And this is why having the Cinder Coat with the legendary attribute of reducing resource cost by 25% is crucial, because without stacking like an unbelievable amount of stats of my gear into damage, and kind of sharing that with toughness, the sharing the toughness and damage building at the same time, this right here is kind of overwhelming for the resources. So having that Cinder Coat is incredibly important. So I want to point that out now as I go through the rest of the abilities. Everything I do costs 30% more mana, which is the resource for Witch Doctors, and I have 1167 of it. So at this weapon, or this ability right here, is one of the Witch Doctor's most powerful abilities, but they make you pay for it with resources. It's melee, it's short range, and it does a lot of damage, and the longer you hold it, it goes up and gets even stronger. So it's a really, really awesome ability. It has some major setbacks, some major shortcomings, which you will see if I run into a treasure goblin, or if I run into certain ranged mobs. You will see the shortcomings or the setbacks of this ability, but it also has some really good pluses as well. So this is my primary attack. Let me show you what that looks like. You'll probably see my mimics pop out as well. Here's my mimics. Like I said, that actually procs very frequently, which is kind of cool. So you can see my mana is just getting wasted right now.
I do not have enough mana.
So that's why having the set bonus here is crucial. Mana management is really important with this build, and I'll show you how it's possible once I start playing. All right, so pretty much two abilities that almost every single Witch Doctor in the game has. I have them as well. The first of which is Spirit Walk. This is probably one of the most legit abilities that we have from a survivability standpoint. Basically allows us to become immune from damage for 2 seconds, and you can actually rune into it and get another second on there, so you can go up to 3 seconds, but 2 seconds is fine as long as you get a feel for where you're going to go next. The rune I chose, as you can see there in the tooltip, I chose to get life back, and that's because my goal as a melee fire build Witch Doctor is to not die. I do not want to die, so I've put a little emphasis into survivability here with this very, very, very important ability that most Witch Doctors use. For my other ability that almost every Witch Doctor has is Soul Harvest. Basically the way this works is you cast a ring around you, and you can basically boost your damage based on an intellect boost. Read the tooltip for information there. The rune I chose for this actually is just a death dealing, very, very powerful. I've also seen some other videos where they downplay this rune. I like this rune because it gets me mana back, and it's quick and it's powerful. I like it. This is, for this build, I find this to be the best rune. You can see the rune is the harvest enemies also take 630% weapon damage. Moving on to my secondary. It's Locust Swarm. You can see it's fire, so I benefit from the plus percentage fire from my gear. This is a pretty sweet dot that gets put out, and it basically transfers from mob to mob. A lot of guys in videos that I've seen, they say it spreads like forest fire. They say it spreads very dramatically, and it does. It spreads pretty good. Now, if you want it to spread even faster, you put on Pestilence, but Pestilence is a poison ability, so I don't really get the benefit or the damage output from Searing. So Piranhas. This is kind of an interesting slot here. This is something that I've been using for a long time now, and I like it, but I think I could probably use something maybe even a little bit better. Could throw a gargantuan in here, or for a group of 4, if you're going through rifts with a group of 4, it'd probably be better to throw in a big bad voodoo slam dance. But for solo, I like this because if I run across a tough, which I mean Torment 2 is what I'm running. There's not a lot of elites, champions, any of those that are that tough. I would say probably the toughest elites I run into are in Act 4, and a lot of those are ranged, and that's kind of where I have my shortcomings with this build. But this is kind of cool because it puts a debuff on the enemies. They take 15% additional damage. Both Locust Swarm and Piranhas benefit from my Creeping Death passive, which allows all, like Haunt, Locust, as you can see in the tooltip, Haunt, Locust Swarm, and Piranhas, their abilities, their effects will last for 5 minutes. So it's a really, really sweet thing. So moving on right to passives, we've already covered Pierce the Veil and Creeping Death. Grave Injustice, just like you'll see in every other Witch Doctor video out there, this is probably one of the most common passive abilities that Witch Doctors use. Basically every time you kill an enemy, you get 1% of your life and mana back, as well as a 1 second cooldown on all of your abilities. Clutch. Really good stuff, especially when you're killing a lot of enemies at once like I'm doing. And then another very popular Torment 2 and up ability is Spirit Vessel. It lowers both Spirit Walk and Soul Harvest, which are up here, so I'm using those, most people do. Lowers both of those by 2 seconds. It also, more importantly, if you die, you basically get healed up 15% of your life and 2 seconds of immunability, and you can go find health globes or health wells, or you know, you can really, this is a lifesaver. Okay, so I'm trying to move on, trying to move quickly here. That's basically my build right there. Last thing I'm going to do is put up my details real quick so that people can look at them if they're interested. Also, I'd like to take a moment to point out that I do have one of the bottomless potions. This one's of the tower. I didn't get a super good roll on it, but this is a really cool item because every time I use my potion, I gain 12% armor, which is really nice. Another survivability benefit or perk. So yeah, it's a really nice item to have. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I've already started my bounties. Torment 2, Act 1. I'm going to go ahead and go out to the Festering Woods. I'm going to do this bounty real quick. And then I'm going to go over to the final bounty, which is a boss. And I'm going to show you how I handle large health single target fights solo. A lot of my play, not all of it, not even much of it, changes when I'm in a group. But for solo play, this is going to be the way that I spec for large health single targets. So let's go ahead and go out to the Festering Woods. I'll run through this bounty real quick, kind of talk out anything I'm doing or what's going on. Of course, just like Payne said, this is kind of experimental, so bear with me. You can see right there, very first thing I did is I come up, I cast initially to start the health or the resource deficit, and then I do my soul harvest right away, which kills them and gives me mana back. Now here's so this is gonna be a quick one, which is good. Let's go start this up.
We're cut off. They'll be upon us at any moment.
You'll notice that I don't use my firebomb, my locust swarm, or my piranhas unless there's a situation like I'm just kind of bum rushing something. Or like I said, if there's a pretty hard mob. So you can see my poison cloud here. In fact, I won't even cast anything. You can see the damage it does on Torment 2, just standing here. I'm not even pushing anything. So you can see kind of the benefits of this build. The way I regain health in combat is through chilling, which I think is what a lot of people do. A lot of people aren't using life with it right now. I'm gonna craft some material. So this, my life management is generally maintained by this stat here. I think this is pretty common for a lot of other players. And it's gonna be life per kill, and you can see it's really not even that substantial. But witch doctors in their back pocket, they have pots just like everybody else. They have immutability with a 14% maximum life gain, which is nice. And then, of course, just like everybody else, we have globes. So that was a quick one. Good. We're now going to move on to a high health single target. And also, which is nice for this particular demonstration, this dungeon has a high density mob groups in it, so you'll kind of see how I deal with it. So, excuse me. So just so you know, the way I run these, if I'm just trying to quickly farm bounties, I'm just going to dot them with my locust swarm. I'm going to, certain mobs, I'm going to throw piranhas at them depending on how much mana I have, because piranha's an expensive ability. And because it's poison, it's not covered under this resource cost reduction. So it's a very expensive ability for me to use. I do not cast it very much. But you might see me cast it from time to time just to do a lot of damage and to buff or debuff some of the guys. I'm not going to be clearing for destructibles right now, so you probably won't see me using firebomb. But let's get going here. So I'm trying to make my way to the butcher. That's just one ability. Piranhas. Just put out some swarm. Going immune right there. And I walked into the explosion like an idiot.
Your evil undoes you.
As you can see, even for Torment 2, the damage is good. You know, it's not the best in the world, but I mean, it does pretty good. And luckily, this particular demonstration works in my favor because there's not a lot of ranged mobs in this gun. I could show you another video of me running through with mobs that are flying around and shooting crap at me, and it's frustrating at times, but it's not unbearable. So there's the swarm. You can see it kind of traveling between them. See the damage it's putting on them. Decent ability.
My curse.
Maybe I'll be lucky enough to get me a legendary.
Your evil undoes you.
Oop, right at the boss. Alright, so once I clear up this pack of mobs here, I'm going to switch a couple of my abilities, actually only 3 of them. Alright, so we're about to kill the Act 1 final boss, the Butcher. Basically, for this boss, I changed three items in my skills. First of all, I add another dot, which for me is Haunt. I choose the Consuming Spirit because none of these really work that great for bosses. Single target. I take the life per second, which is negligible, but that's the one I choose. But that is a dot, and actually in the recent patch, they decreased the mana cost of this down to 50, which is great. And they actually upped the damage to 4,000 weapon percent, which is also pretty stellar. So that's one of the abilities. I take off my fire bats, even though that is my primary AoE ability. I take that off. And I stick Spirit Barrage, which is cold damage. This is a very, very, very popular build using Spirit Barrage, Well of Souls, that I probably will end up going to in in-game once I get the correct pieces. I'm missing a weapon, I'm missing a helm, and I'm missing a set bonus in order to really capitalize on that set. But I'm looking forward to it. So for this boss, Well of Souls is what I'll be using. And for mana management, we're going to keep Pierce the Veil, which is going to cost us a lot of mana, but we're going to be able to hack through that with Rush of Essence. So Haunt, Soul Harvest, Spirit Barrage, and Spirit Walk are all of those are the abilities I'm using, and so every time I cast one of those, I'm going to rack up a 10-second 100 mana regain. So you'll essentially, at the beginning of the fight, you'll see that I'm having mana problems, but by 10 seconds later, 15 seconds later, you'll see that mana is no longer an issue in the fight. It's kind of a cool passive ability if you're using spirit abilities, specifically Spirit Barrage. So, alright, so that's all I'm changing. I guess I need to actually select it. I'm keeping Creeping Death because now, as you can see, I'm using Haunt, Locust Swarm, and Piranhas for the boss. So basically, when I stick Haunt on the boss, Locust Swarm on the boss, and Piranhas on the boss, all three of those abilities will stay on the boss until he dies, unless the fight takes longer than 5 minutes, which it won't. So let's get going. I'm not going to do anything fancy here. I'm not going to try to avoid the fire or do the achievements. I've already done them. So I'm going to put my Haunt on him. There it is. Do my Soul Harvest. Piranhas. So now he's taking 15% more damage. Put my Locust on him. So now he has all my dots on him. Now I'm going to just start casting my single target ability. As you can see, you have very good mobility with this build for a single target. I'm going to go ahead and use a pot here. I'm not being aggressive. I can obviously be a lot more attentive and a lot more aggressive with details, but just kind of showing you how you can screw around with this particular single target build and really benefit from it. Now, actually, this build is really, really nice for. I should be getting this sideways, but I'm not paying attention. This build is really, really great for Malphite.
Vegetable bad.
Not ready yet.
But yeah, overall, Witch Doctor Fire build, very satisfying, very rewarding, good time. Torment 2 is basically the way I have it set up right now is Torment 2 is pretty easy single player without any other players in my group. And the reason why I'm hesitant to transition to Torment 3, because I like the challenge. I do like it to be a little harder, even though it takes a little longer to farm. But the reason why I haven't gone to Torment 3 yet, and I was actually telling this to Sizen the other night, is just because I like the whole idea about survivability and not dying and keeping your pool of reflection bonus. I love that. I think it's cool. I think that's a good challenge, to never die, ever. It's not hardcore, so it doesn't matter if you die. You pay a little bit for durability loss, and you lose your pool of reflection bonus, but it's just kind of a personal goal for me. But anyway, let me think if I have any last things to say here. Switch back my abilities.
Strange.
Did you forget to eat again?
No. In fact, I decided to get the day's eating out of the way
There we go.
all at once. I
But yeah,
kept at it until I couldn't take
Thanks, Payne, for the
another
idea
bite.
to spend a couple moments to show others how we play the
Being
game. I think it's a really cool idea. I hope this video is somewhat entertaining, even though I'm probably not the best narrator ever. But just wanted to provide a resource for people to look at if they were ever curious on how I play my Witch Doctor. So yeah, this is Jobs signing out. Thank